Germany's Chancellor has vowed to strengthen security at home and abroad. Addressing lawmakers, Olaf Scholz said he wants to allow the deportation of asylum seekers involved in crime and terrorism. Now, this follows the death of a police officer in a knife attack. An Afghan national has been detained following that incident. Scholz also defended his decision to allow Ukraine to use German weapons to strike targets in Russia. He called Germany's far-right AfD party embarrassing for their alleged ties to Russia. And he said peace negotiations between Ukraine and Russia will not be on the table at a conference focused on Ukraine next week. Scholz called security the foundation of a democratic society.
Without security, everything is nothing. This sentence has great meaning for me. Because where there's a lack of security, fear grows. Fear of citizens among themselves, fear of external threats, fear of the future, fear that destroys trust and confidence. This is precisely why security is the key to everything else. And this is why I am so convinced security is the cornerstone of our freedom, our democracy, and our rule of law.
And our chief political editor, Michaela Küffner, is at the Bundestag, where Chancellor Scholz delivered that speech on security. Michaela, Scholz's message today was all about safety and security. To what extent are his words a reflection of how the German people are feeling right now?
It was actually unusual how much time he dedicated to exactly that, the debate that has been raging here in Germany ever since that stabbing in the city of Mannheim last week, which saw a 29-year-old policeman die after he was stabbed several times by an Islamist extremist who came from Afghanistan seeking asylum in Germany and whose asylum was rejected. So legally, he should have left the country, but at the same time, Germany does not deport people to Afghanistan, where the Taliban rules once again, or Syria at the moment. And this is something that the government is now addressing. Olaf Scholz himself has addressed here today, and he says whoever comes here and endangers democracy and violates the society he's come to for shelter, but also prosperity, has lost that right to shelter, to protection, and should be sent back. The big question now is how much of this will go beyond the political statement, the political rhetoric, when it gets into the nitty-gritty of the legal detail. And here there are more questions than answers right now. There's an assurance that this is something that is now being politically addressed, and also that new penal codes will be created that encapsulate those very attacks, and also the political attacks, a whole series we've seen here in Germany, not always leading to injury or death, luckily, but at the same time, politicization of crimes and more risk for those who are out there in the public. So those are the two issues he now wants to address, and the big question is how that will happen in concrete.
OK, let's take a quick listen to some of what he said, because he was very clear about the fact that he was in favour of deporting criminals from countries like Syria and Afghanistan. Let's take a listen.
Let me be clear. I'm outraged when someone who has sought protection here commits the most serious crimes. Such criminals should be deported, even if they come from Syria and Afghanistan.
So, Michaela, clear words from Scholz there, but there'll no doubt be legal challenges, won't there, as well as opposition from within his coalition?
Yeah, I think I explained a bit on the legal challenges already, but there's another huge hurdle that he will have to take, and that is his own three-way coalition. How will he get a political majority when the Green Party, which also is seeing the German Vice-Chancellor represented by it, is against this. Now, we heard here today from Umut Nouripur, who is the co-leader of the Green Party, saying, yes, of course, those who are violent, who damage this democracy, they have no place here. But then he says at the same time, this is a much more complex issue. It's not enough to state this. How will you do this logistically? And someone who's sent to a neighboring country will be back here within 3 months' time. Well, that does not sound like Olaf Scholz being on the same page, even with those who share the fundamental statement that he made here today on how this will actually become law. So right now, this doesn't look like it will become German policy that fast. Certainly, we will see more political debate on this with a real change in how the German government acts already. That's already clear, a pretty far way off today.
Okay. A quick word about foreign policy and the change in the Chancellor's stance on Ukraine using German weapons to target Russia, because he addressed that as well, didn't he?
Yes, this is somewhat of a turnaround that we saw in recent days. He previously was adamantly against German weapons being used on Russian territory. He became more precise on that when there are attacks, specific attacks. The city of Kharkiv is under constant attack and it's near the Russian border. Now he's given the green light for Ukraine also to use German weapons to fend that off. At the same time, he remains the Chancellor of caution. He likes to see himself as the Chancellor of peace. That is what also sees him pretty high in the opinion polls on that specific issues, despite the fact that the government as a whole, and he is pretty low in popularity ratings overall. So he's treading a very cautious line, and critics are saying, look, it's not going to be long until you revert a few more of those limitations. Time will tell on that.
DW's chief political editor, Michaela Küffner. Michaela, thanks so much.